Hello and welcome to Chatz In A Pickle, the premier side project of your favorite little TV watching pals who are about to watch TV again, but first they want to wrap this up. They want to wrap up this little season they've been doing. Chatz In A Pickle is a show about unstruck work. I almost said a show about struck work. No. Non-struck work. Except tonight, we may talk about some struck work because we can now because the strikes are done. They said that they're done. We can do that. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about stuff, but first I'm going to talk to you about me. I'm Magellan. Hello. It's nice to see you. I can't see you. Don't worry. Relax. Come on. You're so tense. It's a podcast. And I'm here with Alan. Alan, hello. How are you?
Hi. I'm on the other side of your shoulder. I'm not giving you a massage right now. Oh, sorry. That was my hair. Sorry, that was just the wind. Don't be afraid. Yeah. We're in your ears. We're not here. Don't turn around. It's fine. Hi, guys. I am loopy from a several days long head cold, and I'm here to fucking party with you in your ears.
Fuck. That's awesome. Hey, how you been? How's your week?
Hey, good, man. I just had one of the best weekends of my freaking life. I was hanging out with this cool dude. Watch, I'm going to be sincere. Sorry. Being sincere means using a normal voice.
Be sincere. I'll take it.
It was so fun hanging out with you, Amanda, friend of the podcast, Jim, and many friends of the podcast, Magellan's extended friend group, in New York, watching 13 Going on at 30 in a big movie theater, celebrating your 30th birthday, having a gas. It was just seriously an incredible weekend. I can't speak highly of it enough. You hold a great party.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it was the first time I ever celebrated my own birthday, so felt good about it.
Yeah, you did great.
And now I'm 30, which is why I'm bringing just kind of a brand new energy to the podcast that you've never heard me bring before. If you're sitting there like Magellan is just doing something different, something's different about this guy. Did you get a haircut? No, I've got a new energy. I'm 30, flirty, and thriving, as they say. And look, if you want to watch 13 Going on 30 and approximate about, I don't know, like 10% of what we did on Saturday, you can go to the Chatz Patreon and listen to our old commentary of 13 Going on 30 from a couple years ago. So check that out. Commentary Chatz something number.
The only crucial addition I would have, the only crucial addition is when she sings, she chants 30, flirty, and thriving. Just imagine a theater of 20 idiots singing that along with her. And then then you basically have the theater experience. Exactly right.
I knew the party was a success when I started chanting it and just was hoping really strongly that it would go on long enough and people would join in, and it caught on, and it was like we were in a cult meeting or something.
Yes.
30, flirty, and thriving. 30, flirty, and thriving. 30, flirty, and thriving.
So good. So funny.
So fun. Anyway, enough about that. Alan, there's one other thing I want to know about the week that you just had.
Yes, sir. Tell me about it. Ask me about it.
Pickle check.
Pickle in the fridge. I got a pickle in the fridge. I got my wife all over me. But there's a pickle in the fridge. When my wife is at work, I touch the pickle in the fridge. When my wife is at home, I do not touch the pickle in the fridge. Cause there's a pickle in the fridge. I'm gonna punch you with my teeth.
Hey, remember when I was like, Magellan, don't say we're going to do something over the weekend when we hang out, because we're going to get busy. Oopsie. Listen, we didn't make pickles. We still can whenever we want.
Yeah.
And I think coming out of the pickle check segment, what I've learned is you can have a pickle whenever you want, and you should. They're good for you, kind of. Mm-hmm. And they're delicious, and you can crunch them with your teeth. But that doesn't mean you have to have a pickle, right? Like, pickle should be something you enjoy. I think this is something that's going to come up a lot in today's episode is like, why do we do the things that we do? Why does someone tell us to do something and we do it or don't do it? Like, what spurs on that decision to follow through? And I think sometimes, when we're told over and over again, like, you must do something, we get a little pushback and we say, you're pushing me a little too hard. I don't think I want to do it. And that kind of like pushed me away from pickles in a way. Pushed me in a way. Because I didn't have any pickles this week, and I didn't want to, and I still have them in the fridge. They're going to stay there until they're actually gross, and they're not yet. When I want to eat one, I'll eat it. I'll eat several when I want them, but I feel free now. The strikes are over. I'm in a post-pickle era. I could eat or not eat a pickle. I could take or leave a pickle right now.
Wow.
And last thing is, I thought, my backup plan was I would, prostrate myself for the listener by like bringing out the jar during the episode and just eating a bunch of pickles. But like, I'm
You have too
also,
much dignity for that. You don't need to do that.
That's so true. I have dignity. I care about my body more than I did 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 8 years ago when we started this. And I don't want to do that to myself. I've been somebody who's taken a lot of food challenges and drinking challenges just to like, be the center of attention for a bit. And I don't feel like I need to do that right now. I don't want to have pickles at the moment. I'm all set.
Wow. I love that. Wow. I did not think the pickle check would ever mean anything except a funny place to talk about pickles.
And listen to the
I'm
funny
moved.
song.
I'm genuinely moved. That was beautiful.
Thank you. I hope the folks at home are also moved and they're not like, stinky, okay. eat the
Cop
pickle."
out. Where's the pickle? You talked about quickle. Look, it's hard to prep for a party, it turns out. I threw a little shindig. I figured, Friday night, we could do a quick quickle. You gotta
Wow.
clean a bunch of stuff and vacuum and stay up until 1 a.m. writing bespoke trivia questions that you don't even end up getting to because trivia goes on longer than you expected it to. And then the next day, you're thinking you're going to do a quickle, but instead you have to spend the time cleaning up after the party, and then you have to finally experience your getting 30 depression that you thought you had completely dodged throughout the week, and just kind of like shut down and stare at your cat for about 45 minutes.
Yep. This is all good.
So we didn't quickle, but I did go out of my way to have a couple dishes this week that had pickle.
Oh, tell me so much more.
Yesterday, I had pickle twice yesterday, so I'll just talk about that specifically.
Word.
Because we went to the Nighthawk to go see Spoons, Tunes, and Booze, which I'd love to talk to you more about on this episode later when it comes up in the timeline of the week. And I got like a thing that came with a pickle. A sandwich came with a pickle. And I was sitting next to Amanda. She said, "Can I have your pickle?" And I said, "No, I want to eat this for the podcast.
Oh my God.
I want to have this for the pickle check. I need to eat this pickle."
What did she say?
She kind of had a reaction of like, she didn't really say anything, I don't think, but she was sort of gave the response of like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, so I had a bite of the pickle, and then I gave her the pickle. Okay,
oh,
that was fine.
Okay, you did that. You still passed the pickle check.
And then I went bowling yesterday evening.
Yep.
And there were hot dogs, and you did with different toppings and stuff. And I got a hot dog called the Kingpin that had a sour pickle on it, and that was kind of nice. So I had a bit of a pickly day yesterday, and I enjoyed it. But that's the pickle check. Let's talk about what we did this week for our final Chats in a Pickle episode. Does that sound good?
That sounds fantastic.
All right. So here's what we did. We basically did the Jim Carrey yes man of people recommending us stuff. And I challenged Alan and myself to do the following. Over the course of a week, anything that anybody says to you, "Oh, you should watch blank. Oh my God, you gotta read blank." Whatever. The things that people say, you have to give at least 5 minutes to those things. And then there's obviously gray area recommendations, like people kind of talking in detail about a thing, maybe not saying you should watch this, but kind of implying that they wish you would. And, there's a lot of, gray area that you can explore with what counts as a recommendation and what doesn't. So it'll be interesting to see how we interpreted that separate from one another. But we did that for a week, and we're going to talk about the specific things that we gave 5 minutes to. But first, I'm wondering from you, like, how did you feel about this experience? Did it make you think anything differently about recommendations, about pickles, chatsums? Just if we're being meta, like what this whole season has been about. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, this I don't want this episode to go 3 hours long, but I have so many thoughts about this. I'm somebody who has in the past, like I'd say even like recently, been really hesitant to like explicitly recommend things to people. And I'd say that was a big reason why I started pushing for us to do like regular chatsums was I'm going to throw this out there. Nobody has to do any of the things we recommend, but I'm going to make the choice to recommend things, you know, and that was tough to get used to, but it's fun. I like doing it. I still struggle to do it with friends because I really want my recommendations to people to be like specific, targeted, you know, actionable, just like, you know, marketing goals, smart, if you will. And sometimes that's really hard because I get this weird sense of like anxiety when I recommend something to somebody and they never check it out. And, you know, to the inverse, I always as a kid believed the golden rule, right? You want to treat others how you want to be treated. And so anytime somebody would recommend something to me, I would at least try to give it a chance. That gets really exhausting. And it's especially frustrating and kind of disheartening when somebody recommends you something that they're very passionate about. Please check out this show. It's so important to me. It's so special. And you tell them, oh, I'll get to it. And not even that far down the line, like maybe 3 months later, you finally watch it and their hyperfixation is gone. And you are now carrying the burden of obsessing over it. That is a scenario that happens to me so often that it makes it hard for me to take recommendations as well. So in the past year or so, I've mostly been relegating my watching to, this is something I want to watch because I'm interested in it. And I take recommendations, I queue them up, but I don't commit to watching anything. So this exercise was very interesting for me because it was like, you now have to go back and try everything that's recommended to you and see how committed you want to be to it and change your relationship to the recommendation. So that's very long-winded, but basically I am a very anxious person who worries a lot about if the things I say to people are remembered or that they care or that they're actually going to try the things I recommend them. And in the inverse, that if I watch something somebody recommends me, that they will care that I did it. Was that a good answer? Was that too heady or what?
That very good. So I guess I'm wondering, like, did the experience you have this week shift that that kind of state that you were in, or did it accentuate those anxieties?
Yeah, I think this exercise reminded me of something I've really been working on, which is to not take things so seriously, and to not worry so much about the sort of like sanctity of a recommendation, and just like try something. Like what people are saying when they say you should do something is like, I currently in the moment of the recommendation feel like this is meaningful, and I want you to feel that same meaningfulness. And if you do or don't, at least you tried. That is the like intimate, friendly, kind, nice thing to do, is to have at least tried. So like I was watching some of the movies on my list, and I was like, it's so easy to watch movies. Why don't I just sit down and put movies on more often? And it's because I make such a big deal about like, this movie has to be really good, and it has to be worth my time, and I need to carve out exactly enough time so I don't get distracted at all. And it's like, no, just put it on, dude. Like, just put a movie on. You have a huge TV and you have access to 7 trillion movies on the internet to watch for free. Why are you not just watching movies? And it's because, I've until now just been holding so strong this idea that like I have to like it. And it's like, no, I watched some movies and like I dropped out of some of these in the 5 minutes. And I was like, I probably won't finish this, but I tried, and I can tell that person that I tried. So it helps me relax a little bit with my watching habits. What about you?
Yeah, in hearing you describe your relationship with recommendations, I'm kind of the inverse of you, and I wonder if we've sort of done this to each other to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But like, I very comfortably and frequently will give people recommendations for things, because I don't know why. I just I think part of it is, it feels good to like know stuff about stuff, and maybe there's kind of like a problematic mansplaining component to it, but there's also like part of me that wants to embody my 11th grade A-push teacher, who when I stopped by his room after school, he told me about like Godspeed You Black Emperor and the freaking Pavement and like all these bands that I just would never have known about otherwise. So there's kind of also like playing a persona or a theatrical character of like being the guy who knows stuff and tells people about stuff. And then I've gotten the feedback from people. I can think of one person in particular who's told me like, I feel more hesitant to like recommend things to you because I've recommended so many things to you that you like haven't followed up on. So, and like, that feels bad. I don't want to make people feel that way. But I think it's just something about like, I enjoy when people tell me about the things that they like. I like when people give me the lowdown on like, okay, I watched this whole show and like, here's the whole plot and da 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 da.
Yeah.
That's fun to me. I like being in that sort of a conversation. And I think I've never quite figured out how to navigate socially when someone's like, you should check this out. Because I don't want to say, okay, no, that sounds cool. I'm not going to.
Yeah, that's tough.
I don't know how to say that to people in a way that doesn't feel dismissive, but I've gotten to the point in my life where I like feel like I know what I have the capacity for, and I just sort of know that I'm not going to take people's recommendations, because I don't really have a system for like putting them somewhere and getting to them, because I don't even get to my own recommendations for myself,
Yeah. We are such opposites here. Wow.
So I like
Incredible.
very blithely will tell people like, oh, that's cool, I should check it out. And then I just don't. And
his ass will not check it out.
And like, I kind of feel bad about it, but also to me, there's almost this handshake of like, half of what you want is for somebody to affirm, oh, that's cool, right? Obviously, the more meaningful half is to then come back the next day or the next week and say like, oh, hey, I looked into that thing you mentioned. It was actually really cool. So that was the part that this challenged for me. And I'm sort of realizing like a big reason that I don't take people's recommendations is because it's really like an executive functioning blocker of like, somebody recommends a movie to me. All right, well, I'm not going to spend an hour and a half on this. An hour and a half, that's so much time. But then I go and I watch like 90 minutes of basketball YouTube videos or whatever. So like I have the time, right? And what was nice about this exercise for me is having the little 5-minute trick of like, oh, you only have to watch 5 minutes of it. What it created was either I've spent 5 minutes on it and now I can have something to say to the person who recommended it to me and go back to them and be like, oh, I watched a couple minutes of this show. Like, you were right. This was cool. Or those 5 minutes will hook me and I'll actually enjoy something. So yeah, that's what this did for me, was it gave me kind of a hack to like actually be able to make the time to stop lying to everybody in my life.
Wow.
But yeah. So
I think the 5 minutes made it actually led to me wanting to like stay longer, because it's like, it's like any habit building, right? The trick to watching more movies is to watch 5 minutes of a movie, because if it's a good movie, the first 5 minutes will get you in. The same thing happened to me with the books I read, where I was like, shit, that was enough. I'm already in. Like, you can actually sell somebody in 5 minutes. I know there are slow burns, but like I can tell when I'm watching a slow burn, right? Like, one of my picks here is definitely like the first 5 minutes was dreadfully boring, but I can tell they're cooking the big stuff. And like, that's actually enough to sell me.
Right.
I wouldn't say this is universal, but for everything that we were recommended, or I was recommended at least, I was like, okay, now I'm in. And yeah, I don't want people who recommend me things to stop. I don't want people to feel weird about recommending me stuff. But yeah, when I recommend things to people, or I lend them books, for example, and they put it off for like 6 months to a year, like a good friend of mine has, I recently asked them like, oh, did you ever read that book? And they were like, no. And then I see them talking about like 17 other books they read. I do feel bad. And I know I shouldn't. Like, I know that doesn't mean anything about me or how they feel about me. And that's something I'm working on. But like, ultimately, I struggle to recommend things because it feels personal when I choose to recommend something to someone. And so in turn, like I was saying earlier, when somebody recommends something to me, I actually highly prioritize it. Is that a good or bad habit or toxic habit? I don't know. It's just the way my brain works.
Yeah, I have a shelf of books that people have lent to me.
Oh, God.
Like, not a shelf, but like more than one book kind of sitting together. And it's like, yeah, I should really read those. So from my perspective, at least, what I'll tell you is that it's not a personal thing. Yeah. It's like it's like a task initiation thing. It's just like, where do you start? I was in somebody else's class last week, and they were doing the metaphor with their students of like, how do you eat an elephant?
Oh yeah.
And so that's what it is for me. Of like, so many people recommended so many things to me. How do I eat an elephant?
A bite at a time.
A bite at a time, right? Which is what the 5-minute thing is. So
exactly.
Maybe we should talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Cool. So you've got 8 things that you gave some time to. I've got a few more, but some of mine are not super substantial. So, and mine are organized by the day that they were recommended to me over the course of this past week. So
okay,
we can start with your first thing and then go to my first day and kind of ping pong back and forth like that.
That sounds perfect. So my first recommendation was from a good friend of mine who just traveled. I'm going to also explain the context with which I was recommended this.
Me too.
For all my picks. They traveled really far with family, like to a different country. And so on the way back, they couldn't sleep and they just put on 5 movies back to back. Or 7. I think they watched 7 films, which again, you can just put movies on. You don't have to worry about them being in the right watch environment. Sometimes a plane is a valid way to watch a movie. And one of the films that he watched was Ford versus Ferrari, which is a dramatized biopic about these 2 guys who are trying to build a car to beat the Ferrari car in auto racing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1966. It stars Matt Damon and Christian Bale. It is like a lot of these like dramatized historical biopic-y things where where all these characters are going to go because they know you Googled it. And so a lot of the scenes at the beginning are like, I don't know, what do you want to do more than anything else in the world? It's important that you have a dream. What is it? I want to build a car. And it's like, you're going to build a car at the end of the movie. I know this. That's what your guy does. So in a way, I watched 10 minutes of it. I was like, I know where the rest of this is going. I'm sure the driving, this is what I'm talking about, where we're like, it's a slow burn. There isn't a lot of driving in the beginning of it. There's like a short race scene and then a lot of talking. And I just don't think that the beginning of Ford versus Ferrari captures the excitement of the auto industry and of the motorsports industry in the 60s. Maybe it gets better. I didn't feel particularly compelled to watch more of it, but I am always seeking out more movies about motorsports because they're really cool. And I care a lot about that. So I'm glad this was recommended to me, even though it didn't really hook me in the first couple minutes, and it made me want to watch more Formula One.
Is there a movie about motorsports that you've seen that you would recommend?
I always recommend, if people want to watch just like a film about it, the documentary Senna. That's about Ayrton Senna, who is a Brazilian driver legend, and it's just an incredibly well-produced documentary. It's not a dramatization; it's all the archival footage, and I think that's good for me. I mean, I've talked about Formula One Drive to Survive on here. That's not really the same thing, though. That's not about a story. That's about like a thing that's happening in sports. I liked the film Rush a little bit more. But that one leans a lot more into being ridiculous, whereas Ford versus Ferrari tries to be very like serious.
A grounded thing.
And yeah. I also really want to watch. I actually, when I was recommended this, and I was like, oh shit, I should watch that. I thought it was the coming out soon Ferrari movie from with Adam Driver, directed by Michael Mann, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, I'm gonna watch that. And I looked at what I wrote down, and I was like, Ford versus Ferrari. This is a different film. God damn it. The Ferrari movie's not even out yet. It's out in December. So it wasn't the movie I expected. That was another reason I was like, man, I wanted to watch a Michael Mann fucking action movie with Adam Driver doing a bad Italian accent. But it's fine. I would say it's mid, if I'm being honest.
Okay. Let's see. So I started jotting down recommendations the day after we last recorded, so last Tuesday. And this one was something that was brought up by one of my bosses, who, this was the second time that he asked me. He was like, oh, have you seen Invincible? So I was like, okay, I guess I'll check out Invincible. And I know stuff about Invincible because I used to listen to the Major Spoilers podcast.
Yep.
So I've listened to their review of like the first trade paperback of Invincible. So I know the twist and I know the thing with the guy. and all that stuff, and I won't
Yeah.
spoil it. But I was like, all right, fine, I'll watch the first 5 minutes of Invincible. And props to the cartoon for having a very engaging first 5 minutes. Where you've seen it?
I'm caught up. Yeah, I'm
You're
caught up
caught
on
up.
season 2.
A very engaging first 5 minutes of that first episode where it's these two security guards outside of the White House, and one of them is John Hamm, which is
Yeah.
a weird voice to hear. And they're basically getting really in depth with the personal lives of these two security guards, and the John Hamm security guard tells this really sweet story about, like, you know, he's a stepdad to this kid who's like had some mood issues and like punched him in the face and maybe even had some drug issues, but is really like turning it around and becoming a better person, and he's so proud of him, and you know, I feel like I'm his dad and whatever. And the whole time you're like, all right, these guys are gonna die, what's going on here? But it's very moving. And then the supervillains show up and all the superheroes show up, and it's a big punchy, fighty. Omni-Man shows up, and it's Omni-Man. And I basically watched through that scene up until we meet the...
Mark.
What's his name?
Mark Grayson.
Mark.
The kid?
We meet Mark, the protagonist. And it was fine. I don't love the art style, to be honest.
Yep.
It feels dated to me for some reason. I don't know what it is about it. Like, maybe it just kind of looks like looked like X-Men Evolution, but not in a fun way.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm glad that I watched the 5 minutes so that I could tell I don't really need to watch more of this. I think if I had to, or if it was on, I would enjoy it fine. But this was one of those things where the relief of the 5 minute rule is like, I've had Invincible's been living in my head rent free ever since 2010. And I was like, oh, listening to this podcast, I should totally read this. Now it's back and it's a TV show and people are talking about it. Oh, geez, I should watch this thing. And I got to have the experience of watching it and being like, okay, I think I'm good. But yeah. So that was
totally valid.
Invincible experience.
I binged all the first season on another trip. I actually think it was a bus back then. That was when I was still greyhounding to visit you, because some friend recommended it to me, and I was like, yeah, same thing. Like, I remember hearing about this on Major Spoilers. Like, I'll check it out. I agree. I don't love the art style. I don't think it ever becomes an art style that I like. I think it's just very, like, they're efficient. It's like clean, overly clean. It makes me want to just read the comic, but then I'm like, well, the comic's from like the 2000s, or a lot of it is, and it's gonna be really dated probably. And I feel like I got my fill of the first season, and the second season's doing interesting things, but I'm also like kind of watching it out of momentum. It's good. It also has that same issue that The Legend of Vox Machina had, where the first couple episodes are way too violent, because they're like, it's an R-rated cartoon. We're going to watch people get cut open and broken and bruised.
Right.
And it is still very violent for all of it, and like sexual and everything, but like they dial it back significantly after the first couple. And I feel like maybe this is an Amazon Prime thing where they're like, you got to make it all fucked up so that people think it's mature. And you just don't have to. I often find myself going like, that guy you don't have to drive that guy's face across the pavement and show it bleeding. Like, that was unnecessary.
Right.
It makes me curious about the comic. So if people have read the comic and think I should just switch to that, then I'm curious. And there's a character in it named Alan who I love, but that's all I got. He's voiced by Seth Rogen.
You reminded me that I still haven't watched season 2 of The Legend of Vox Machina, so
I'm good. You could watch it. Tell me if it's good.
I will. That was all that I got last Tuesday, so hit me with your next one, which is probably going to take up a big chunk of today's podcast.
I watched this one today, guys. In that same conversation with my friend, his partner came in the room, and we were talking about movies we've been meaning to watch for a while. And I was like, oh, like we were like scrolling through Netflix, and I was like, oh my god, I didn't know that Whiplash was on Netflix. And they both turned to me and they were like, you haven't seen Whiplash? And I was like, no. And they were like, you should really watch it. I think you would like it. Which I love it when people think I would like things, especially when they're right. God damn it. So quickly, I didn't like La La Land. I was disappointed, but I didn't dislike it. It just really it did not meet my expectations.
Sure.
Which were high. And I was like, I believe that Damien Chazelle, the director, can still cook. People keep telling me he's done it. People say good things about Babylon, I guess. But people say very good things about Whiplash. And I was always kind of like intimidated to watch it or just like pushed away by it. And I finally started it today. And this was an example of the 5 minutes pulled me in to watch the whole damn movie. I could not put this down until let me see what scene it was. This part right here. The out of tune player. There's a scene where J.K. Simmons' character like hunts down within his crew of like jazz people the person who's out of tune, and he screams at and abuses the kid who's not even out of tune into leaving, and then he's like, oh, that wasn't even the guy. And it feels like you're watching the goddamn Predator, and it's a bunch of kids in jazz club. Like, what is going on? This movie is a heart attack in an hour and a half. It's so stressful. You guys already know this. I'm like not bringing anything new with that take, but what I think is my special take about Whiplash is this is a love story between two people who are so deeply, fundamentally broken and needing, not broken, that seems judgmental, who are just desperately in need of somebody who cares about them and to be cared for, that they will literally shun everything else to make the other person think about them. And it goes both ways. And Miles Teller plays the actual drums in this movie, and that's a fucking accomplishment. J.K. Simmons gives one of the best performances of his life as he tears this kid's psyche down bit by bit until there's this scene later in the movie. I guess I'm going to spoil Whiplash. It's not kind of a hard movie to spoil, though.
Yeah.
But like jump 30 seconds if you don't want to know anything about like the nitty gritty here. So it's right after the court case, right, where they fire J.K. Simmons' character.
Yeah.
And then the other guy gets kicked out of school. And they're at a restaurant together after he sees J.K. Simmons at a jazz show. And it's a date. Like, it's literally them being, he's like, why are you the way you are? And J.K. Simmons is like, because people don't care anymore about being the best. And like, I have heard abusive type people say things like this, in schools, in university. I've heard students feel the way that Miles Teller does, where like, I don't want to be okay. I don't want to be good enough. I want to be better than everybody else. And I can't necessarily relate, but sometimes I see the appeal of caring about something so much that it consumes you. Like there is a sort of like sick, I think there's a take often online that people are like, this movie made us like J.K. Simmons' character. And it's like, learn media literacy 101 challenge, you guys. Everybody in this movie sucks. Both characters are doing the wrong thing. You're watching them do the wrong thing, and it ends with them both, spoiler alert, doing the wrong thing. Yeah. And yet it creates the most beautiful 20-minute drum sequence I've ever seen at the very end there. And it's like, is it worth it? Not really, but is it worth it?
Right.
And the movie lets you sit on that as the credits starts rolling. You're like, God, it shouldn't be worth it. But he smiles at him. He smiles at Miles Teller, absolutely crushing it. He's bleeding on the drums, dude. And you're like, fuck, it's kind of worth it, though. Like, nobody's ever going to do it that well again. He's so young, and he's so good, and he's going to only get better if he keeps trying at this. God, it made me want to get really into something. And I don't think that's how I should have come out of this film.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, like you're saying, it's a movie that does a great job of presenting a problem without a solution, or presenting a problem in the absence of a solution.
Yes.
Because it's, I mean, to a certain extent, like the toxicity of the J.K. Simmons character is a little cartoonish. I'm sure there are people like that who exist. And I'm also sure that the vast majority of like jazz band director guys are not like that. So, on some level, it's like we're watching a problem that mostly only movie characters are going to have. But I do think that the movie does a good job of like getting at the emotional truth of being someone who wants to give everything to their art and bringing to life this like this story that's often told to artists of you need to, like you were saying, literally sweat and bleed for your art for it to be as great as you want it to be. And you don't have to, but also if you did do that, it would be pretty great. And that's a really hard thing to navigate. And then the movie's just such a such like a flex of cinematography and music, and the coloring of the movie is really like, I don't know, I just always remember how yellow it is. And
Yes, very yellow
trippy
and
that
dark
feels.
blacks with the shirts.
Yeah. So it's also just like from a cinema craft perspective, really great. There's this really wonderful movie storytelling video essay called "The Number One Secret to Writing Iconic Characters." Tyler Mowry is the YouTuber, and essentially in the video he discusses this concept of four corners opposition. So having like, if you imagine a square, and on the two sides, the left and the right of the square, are like two different philosophical concepts or themes or whatever. And you have four characters, two for each theme, and in each theme you have a character representing what's good about that theme and a character representing what's bad about it. So in Whiplash, he describes the tension in the film is between greatness and normalcy, and the Miles Teller character shows the positive side of greatness, and the J.K. Simmons character shows the negative side of greatness. And then the young girl, I forget the name of the actor, who Miles Teller's character...
Melissa Benoist.
Yep. Who Miles Teller's character goes on a date with and all that. She demonstrates the positive aspects of like normalcy and kind of walking away from this greatness myth-making thing. And then his dad, who shows up a lot, represents like kind of the negative aspects of the normalcy or the parts that he's trying to get away from. So it's a pretty good video essay that like dives into that in more detail.
The Number One Secret to Writing Iconic Characters. I'll link it. By Tyler Mowry. That's awesome. Yeah, and I really felt, because that's Paul Reiser playing his dad, and there's that part at the end when Miles Teller like leaves the stage because J.K. Simmons gave him the wrong music sheet in front of like the most important audience of his life, and you get to see Paul Reiser finally be its dad and be like, "Come here, we're going home. I'm sorry that happened." He gives him a hug, and Miles Teller literally like turns around and is like, "Nope, I control the sequence now," and it starts telling the band like, "I control the pace," and becomes the very toxic thing that he's been so worried about, which is somebody who abandons family and care and empathy for just pure demonstration of skill and talent and artistry. And again, that's the best sequence in the movie. Right. Like, it's not just like it's good, and it's not like, oh my God, it's so sad. It's actually beautiful. And the movie, I just love a movie that leaves you not sure how to feel. That's like one of my favorite things coming out of a film is like, that didn't feel clean, actually. It cuts really sharply at the very end on this little smile that J.K. Simmons throws him, and you're like, was it actually, wait, maybe it was worth it. Oh, that's not a good feeling. I don't think that's great, but let's sit on that. It's interesting too that Chazelle wrote this while he was frustrated trying to write La La Land, which is just funny to think about, especially when you watch both. You're like, oh yeah, I totally get it. But now I really want to watch Babylon, because damn, this guy might have the sauce a little bit. I'm sorry I doubted you, Damien. Damien, not my tempo. Ugh.
So good.
And so much blood also. Anyways, what's your next batch of stuff?
All right, so the next day was Wednesday of last week, and two that came up when I was hosting my after-school D&D club. I was describing something in a scene. Basically, I was like doing this all off the seat of my pants because another teacher had been DMing because I had to like do something, and then I came in and she was like, all right, do you want to take over? And I was like, okay, sure. And the whole thing was just like they were at a pond and there was like a fish person that they were trying to fight. And so I started doing a thing off on the fly where it was basically like they're trying to attack this fish person, but there's something that's like charming them and making it difficult to be violent. And they hear this like strange ethereal music. And one of my students was kind of like, oh, it's like kind of like sirens. And she was talking about how it was reminding her of something from the Percy Jackson books. So, and I was like, oh, I haven't read those. She was like, oh, what? You haven't read those books? So I decided to listen to the audiobook on Spotify because now Spotify
Ooh.
Premium has audiobooks, which has made it really easy to be like, what's that book all about? Let me check that out. Pop it open. Okay, interesting. And the Percy Jackson, for the first book, The Lightning Thief, starts off really strangely, where they're basically trying. First of all, it starts off with this kind of like fourth wall breaking narration of, hey, you probably shouldn't read this book. I'm like a half-blood, and I have these powers. I don't know. If you think you might have these powers, you're better off putting this book down. And if I was a kid when these books came out, I would have eaten that shit up. 100%. Especially with how much I loved like Greek myths and stuff. The first line of the first book is, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. Pretty good.
Very good
first line. Yeah, so it was giving like Harry Potter meets A Series of Unfortunate Events. But then I just kind of had a bit of a distaste for it because they're trying really hard to set up Percy as this like bad kid who always caused trouble in a way that felt like very hard to believe. He's like, I had this accident with a Revolutionary War cannon on a field trip. I wasn't aiming for the school bus, but I got expelled anyway. Okay.
But
it's like, I guess I get it. It's a book for kids. And then there's just like some attempts at being inclusive of disabled characters, but then also some like casual ableism mixed in right at the same time. And I was like, all right, well, I don't like this narrator. This book's kind of old and doing things that aren't fun. I think I missed my window in life to read Percy Jackson, probably. So
that's sad.
So I'm out. Maybe I'll maybe I'll watch like the movie or something one day. I don't know, but
I've heard the movie's very bad.
Oh, okay, then I won't do that. But I would love for my students to describe to me more stuff from Percy Jackson, because the thing they were comparing what we were doing to sounded pretty cool. But yeah, I wasn't about it. I haven't totally written it off, but because I can tell like you're supposed to not like him a little bit, so that you can come to like him more later as he figures his shit out. But I just didn't have
the classic young adult protagonist thing.
Yeah. The other thing that came up in that D&D game is one of my students mentioned or referenced a TikTok meme that I wasn't aware of. So I decided to download TikTok and spend 5 minutes on TikTok.
Oh God. How was that?
Well, the nice thing is I didn't have to create an account, so they made it pretty frictionless. There is an odd amount of cop content, like a couple TikToks that were like a cop at a school magic show, or like, the cops came and like broke up us seniors sleeping on the grass. And it's like, why is there so much cop content? And then they showed me a fucking clip of, that Matt Rife guy who YouTube is like always trying to show me Matt Rife. And I don't think he's that
I've
funny.
seen this guy before. Yeah.
I don't think he's that funny. I don't want to watch his clips. But it was a really great clip where there was a guy at his show who had a tattoo. He was asking him, like, what's your favorite tattoo that you have? And the guy was like, well, I have this Spotify tattoo. And it was like one of those QR code things that when you scan it, it plays a song. Yeah. So he goes and he scans the guy's tattoo on his phone. And his phone goes, it's tearing up my heart when I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, that's pretty cool. And then freaking Matt Rife starts to try to joke about it. It's like, all right, I'm good. I'm out. I'm done with this clip.
Yeah.
Somebody was playing Cards Against Humanity with their cat. That was kind of funny.
Oh.
And then I ended on a clip of this little girl being like, I'm cranky, I'm tired, and I worked hard at school. And I was like, yep,
same.
Me too. And I'm going to now uninstall TikTok.
Good.
But in those 5 minutes, they delivered enough entertainment to me that I was like, okay, this is a little dangerous. I could see myself getting sucked into TikTok. And then when I did that, I was also like, well, Amanda's always sending me memes on Instagram, and I'm way behind on watching the memes that she sent me. So I went and did some Instagram memes. I want to read you a meme that she sent me today.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the meme. It says, "She cartoon running noise on my cuckoo clock sound till I pie splat."
That's good.
And then there's two more. "She car horn on my anvil dropping noise till I Tom and Jerry yow."
Yee! Okay, that's good.
"She train chugging on my bicycle bell till I foghorn."
That one's just real. I've done that one before. Till I foghorn. Damn, she knows your humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Anyway.
Both Instagram Reels and TikTok have this malicious, I mean, all of these have this malicious thing with short form video, where the more you watch and the more you engage, the smarter the algorithm gets.
Right.
I'd say TikTok's is the best at this, where like within 30 minutes of using it, if you're actually, I don't know if you have to be signed in to make it really pay attention or what, but it knows how long you stay on something, and if you choose to like it and how you engage with it, and it will gradually over time just cater exactly an algorithm for you. And it's wild how much there is, no matter how specific or niche your interests are, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go next.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll keep this one super short. This was like the recommendation that friend gave me at the end of the night when I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing for the podcast where I'm taking recommendations, and I know I'm not supposed to tell you this, but like I'm gonna give you one freebie just because at the time I didn't have much on my list. And he was like, you know, I keep recommending you Venom and you've never watched it. I kind of want you to like start the movie, the Tom Hardy Venom film. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, I guess I technically broke the rules, but I'm going to add this. And this was a great example of like, I could just have put this movie on and watched it. Like, there are so many superhero movies now. We are so saturated with them that A, the MCU is falling apart, and B, you can just like watch. Venom's like kind of good. Tom Hardy's good in it. He has the wackiest American accent I've ever heard. You can hear it, him struggling with it in every line. He's dating Michelle Williams, which is wild. And within the first 5 minutes, we establish our villain, who's played by one of the hottest people in the world, Riz Ahmed. And his scientist assistant is freaking Jenny Slate, dude. And I was like, what? This movie's for the gays. This is wonderful. I love this. And I know a lot of queer people who actually like Venom and think it's like kind of sexy and fun and whatever. And I was like, I should just watch this. I'm not going to watch it today, but I will sit down and watch Venom at some point. Also, there's a Pusha T soundtrack needle drop at the very beginning, and it made me like say hell yeah, basically. I was like, this movie is better than I thought. I'm sorry I doubted you.
Okay, well, shit. I didn't know Venom might actually be fun.
Yeah, not like remarkable. The first 5 minutes are like, the symbiote escapes from a spaceship and it lands on a guy, and then it goes into the medic and he kills the medic, and then the medic like walks into the city. Oh my god, he's here.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's gonna happen.
Right.
And then they show like Eddie Brock doing a bunch of reporting. He's like, I'm Eddie Brock and I'm here at Occupy Wall Street. And it made me realize that this exercise we're doing is also partly how like film executives greenlight movies. Sure. It's like, give me the elevator pitch, give me the first 5 minutes.
Right.
And like within the first 5 to 10 minutes of Venom, you're like, symbiote in the city, Eddie Brock, main character, has a girlfriend and is a reporter. Done. I'm good. Now the movie can happen.
Yeah.
And then I didn't watch more of it, but I might someday.
Okay. All right, let me take you through my last Thursday. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Same boss guy at work. The other thing that's interesting about this exercise is you notice who recommends you stuff a lot. And this guy, I think, kind of has my approach to recommending. Of he just like, he thinks of something and he's like, oh, this is reminding me of this. Have you ever checked this out? Oh, let me tell you about it. Which is kind of how I approach it. Is this the
coworker that I met this weekend?
I don't know.
Not this weekend, but
I mean, he was at the festivities. I don't know if you met or not.
Oh, okay. No, it's not the one I'm thinking of then. Go ahead. Okay. Sorry.
But he recommended this podcast to me because he was coming to the birthday thing and he knew that we were watching 13 going on 30. So he recommended a specific episode of a podcast called Trial by Content, which is a Ringer podcast on Spotify. The premise essentially is like they're debating movie or TV related questions and they sort of bring like the things that they're advocating for to win that thing. He specifically recommended a recent episode of theirs about the best body swap movie. And he brought it up because he said that they disqualified 13 Going on 30 as not technically being a body swap movie because in the movie, Jenna's not like swapping with anybody. She's just going into her future self, basically.
Right.
So I decided to listen to that episode. I skipped ahead to the part where they talk about things that they disqualified, and I didn't hear them talk about 13 Going on 30, so maybe he like made that up in his head, or it was in a different part of the episode or something. But it's a fun podcast, and I like the way they format it because they talk about like what inspired the theme. So for them, it was the Marvels. I guess there's something in the Marvels that involves body swapping or something. Sure. And then they talk about all of the things that they're not counting. And then my favorite part of their structure is before they tell you, there's 3 hosts, and before they tell you the specific thing that they brought that they're going to argue for in the trial by content, they talk about like their closest runner-up. They call it their hardest cut. And so they give a little, or their toughest cut. So they give a little like sad discussion of, I really wanted to do this one, but it just didn't make the cut. So it's a fun podcast. I really like the concept. I kind of want to steal the concept for a Chatz Nights episode at some point.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be really easy for us to riff on it. I'm curious what you think the best body swap movie is also. Do you have a thought on that?
Not off the top of my... Can you name me a couple?
I could tell you what I think it is.
What do you think? Wait, does Looper count? No, because that's the same thing. Older... There's no swapping.
I wouldn't count Looper.
Okay.
It's on the border if this is acceptable, but I would advocate for Face Off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is not quite a body swap because it's a face swap, I guess.
Correct.
What's yours? What do you got?
Freaky Friday.
Yeah. That's
a great one.
That's a good one.
That's a great one. A Get Out if you want to be nasty.
They talked about Get Out.
They did? Okay, great.
A contender that they ultimately didn't consider for the final debate.
You haven't seen Get Out yet, have you?
No, but I had it spoiled for me.
Okay, fair enough.
So, there you go. Yeah, so that was fun. They also one of their listeners wrote in and said that they misheard the theme as best boggy swamp movie and said that of course the best boggy swamp movie is Shrek, which is very funny to me.
Deliverance, eat your heart out.
Deliverance. So that was that. Later in the evening, I went to my weekly D&D game at the local board game store, and a bunch of folks at the end of it were recommending. We have a player who's like pretty new to D&D stuff, and this is like her first time playing. So a bunch of people recommended that she check out Fantasy High, the D20 season, Dimension 20 season.
Ooh.
I don't have a lot to say about it because I've watched Fantasy High before, but it was nice to revisit it because my roommate Sam's been watching it a bunch lately. They're coming out with a Fantasy High junior year season in January. And it was nice to be reminded, like, even though I've watched it, those first 5 minutes, they show you all the cool minis that they have. They have all these music cues. They do like this strong character moment with Lou's character, Fabian, who's like the kid of a pirate. And they just like shotgun blast you with, come on, we're doing voices. We're having fun. Watch it. And I almost watched more of it, but I had a bunch of other stuff that I needed to check out. So that's just me.
Griffin McElroy and Brian David Gilbert are in that show?
In different, in like individual
guest roles.
Guest roles.
Right. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sign up for Dropout, but
live shows or something like that. Well, that season's free on YouTube, which is why everybody at D&D was recommending it. Is because all of Fantasy High is on YouTube.
Okay, great. Okay, I have to subscribe to Dropout then.
Yeah. Okay, two quick hits here. Actually, the first is a quick hit. The second is a longer hit. Amanda's new show that she's been watching is Murder, She Wrote. So it's just been on, and I've fallen asleep to it. And it's a nice show to just have on and fall asleep to.
Yes.
It's pretty great. So, because like all these men are like, what the? You don't know shit about murder. And then she's like, I know lots of shit about murder. You're fucking dumb, and you did it. So
And then she solves it, and you're like,
she
damn,
solves
Jessica,
it,
okay.
and it's good. Go off. I was on the phone with my dad, who had a procedure done recently for like kidney stone type stuff, and he was telling me that he's gotten a lot of comfort out of watching The Big Bang Theory, and
Aww.
I was like, Dad, I wish you knew what you've done to me.
You've done this to me.
So I'm very happy that it's brought him comfort. I watched 5 minutes of the first episode of The Big Bang Theory. The first joke was pretty funny.
Okay.
Basically, they're walking into this place talking about some complex physics thing, and Leonard to Sheldon is like, what's the point of this? And Sheldon's like, oh, there's no point to it. I just think it would make a great t-shirt. That's a funny joke.
Okay. Yeah, fine, sure. Shake, Sheldon.
They get into the place. There's a receptionist. They finish the receptionist crossword really quickly, and then it's revealed that they're at a high IQ sperm bank to donate sperm. All right, that's a concept.
Okay.
I'm rolling with it.
Okay.
Then they get into a conversation where they're like, wait, I don't actually want to be here. And then they're kind of like, Sheldon asks, well, what's the process of leaving? And Leonard's like, I don't know. I've never done this before. And so they very nervously set down their clipboards that they were writing their medical info on and try to tiptoe out of there. And the receptionist says, goodbye. And they're like, bye. Still funny. Still funny. And then they get home and they look at Penny through an open door.
Oh, okay. She's changing.
And they talk about how she's such an improvement upon their previous neighbor, who they proceed to fat shame. And they also use like outdated words for somebody who's trans. And then the BNL theme song kicks in.
Oh, God.
And I turn off the episode. Good.
2007.
Big Bang Theory. So, you know, it was fun. I can definitely see it being a comfort show. I have watched episodes of it before. I think it has good jokes here and there, but it just bothers me like how much contempt the show eventually has for like the nerd characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, but at least the first 3 minutes were pretty good.
That's unfortunate. I was like very, very, very briefly considering looking at Young Sheldon, which is it's approaching, I think it's going to end soon, where it ended. It was at like 180 episodes, which is bananas.
No
That's
way.
the spin-off. Yes. Young Sheldon has just been cooking and cooking. And I saw this, like, you know those, like, that comicbooks.com or, like, Screen Rant website where they have all the, like, the clickbaitiest headlines, and you're like, what the fuck is this? And then you read the article and there's nothing useful.
Right.
They had some headline that was like, Young Sheldon is eventually going to have to deal with, like, the fundamental tragedy of Big Bang Theory. And I was like, that's hilarious. What the fuck could you possibly mean? And I believe it's, I guess, spoilers for the Big Bang Theory.
Just like a sibling die or something?
No, I think his dad cheats on his mom.
Oh.
Or something like that. I could be wrong, but
no, that's not
it was
fun.
when he was, it's like when he was a kid. And so they were like, well, Young Sheldon's going to have to get there eventually if it's going to be him as that child. And I was like, it's so interesting that there are people who think enough about Young Sheldon seriously that somebody wrote this article.
Yeah, I'm sure the writers of Young Sheldon are like, oh fuck,
we wrote ourselves into this corner.
That's not our tempo.
No.
Yeah.
Not my bag, but cool that you actually checked it out, even though it sounds unfortunate. My next two are books. So I read the first like 6 or 7 pages of 2 books. The first is Early Riser by Jasper Fforde, which was recommended to me by a friend's partner because she was looking on her bookshelf and was like, I think you would love this. And he handed it to me. Early Riser, really, really cool sci-fi premise. So get this, and this is all I have because I read very little of it.
Okay.
Alternate history, United Kingdom. Okay. The world is now so cold because of global cooling that we have like long-term ice ages. And the only way for all of humanity to keep living is for chunks of humanity to go into hibernation like animals.
Oh.
And the rest of humanity has to survive in these like protective areas. And if you return and you get out of hibernation early, then you get what's called dead in sleep because your brain like neural collapse. And if you don't eat enough and you have like shortage of like, you know, any vitamins or healthy stuff, then you become a night walker. Like you wake up too early and then your body just works on eating and moving basically. And the main character is a presumably like non-gendered person who works for like the Watch basically. The people who stay alive and watch all of this stuff, the Winter Consul.
Ooh,
and
I like that.
which so many good proper nouns. And it seems like the threat does not come from outside, but it comes from within. There are viral dreams infecting the people who are asleep and waking them up early. Isn't that really cool?
This is a cool sounding book.
Yeah, I really want to read more of this. This is like a breezy sci-fi fun time book, I think. Not fun time, it's probably like depressing, but pretty unique premise. That's not every day that you read such a unique premise. And it was from 2018. It's not even that old.
Yeah.
That's early riser Jasper Ford.
Yeah.
I recommend, even from just the short bit that I read.
I love that.
Good prose too. Good like dialogue. The way people talk. They use proper nouns without it feeling annoying. Like it worked. It worked for me.
Yeah. Nice.
But back to you.
So we're now on Friday. And this was a conversation that I had with two of my students who were sitting eating lunch before they dismissed for the day on Friday. And I went and I sat with them. Before I tell you what they recommended, I also have to tell you something funny, which is after I sat with them, I went back up to the cafeteria line to get an apple. And the lunch person gave me a plate with 4 apples on it. So I kind of was... Did I tell you these jokes?
You told me these jokes, but tell the listener.
I'll tell the listener. I had a plate with 4 apples on it, and so I'm like wandering back into the cafeteria, just kind of holding 4 apples, and I start to give some of them to my students, which is not how that should work, by the way. Where's my freaking red apple like a teacher's supposed to get? It's fine. It's fine. It's okay.
Fine.
And I go over to talk to these 2 students who had just recommended me a couple things, and they were like, "Wait, come here. We came up with these jokes." And one of them's like, I was looking at you with all those apples, and I was like, "Yeah, the doctor's going to say far away from you today." Pretty funny. Pretty good. And then they were like, "Wait, I got another one. You look like one of those math problems." Because it's like...
Good. That one's good.
That one's really funny. I laughed hard at that. Anyway.
There's 5 apples.
So when I was eating lunch with these 2 students, I was talking to them, and I don't remember how Star Wars came up. Oh, because they asked me what I had done for my birthday a couple days prior, and I was like, "Oh, I fell asleep watching Star Trek when I got home. It was awesome." And this one student was like, "Oh, I'm not really much of a Star Trek person. I'm more of a Star Wars person." "Oh, Star Wars, huh? Me too. What's your favorite Star Wars thing?" And they were like, "Well, I really like Return of the Jedi." "Oh, yeah, that's my favorite Star Wars movie, too. Do you watch any of the TV shows?" I was fishing for a recommendation.
Yeah.
In my head, I was like, make me watch Ahsoka. Make me watch one of these things. And they said that their favorite Star Wars thing was Star Wars Rebels. So I watched the first 5 minutes of Star Wars Rebels.
Oh. And?
This is my very balanced take on the first 5 minutes of Star Wars Rebels. Yes. The problem with watching the first 5 minutes of any Star Wars thing is that they have to spend that time doing like the contractual Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
Because it starts with like, here's a space shot of 3 Star Destroyers like going around. Here's Darth Vader saying some stuff and doing the kind of thing. Here's a plucky kid on a secluded world like being scruffy and stealing fruit from a guy. And I was just like, all right, I don't need like a Star Wars thing that's, not doing a new thing. And I know that the show probably does lots of cool new things, but sometimes I get frustrated just because like the movies are throwing shit at the wall and being like, all right, there's a sort of sand palace with a big slug and everybody's singing jazz music together or whatever.
Yeah.
And then every Star Wars property that's not the movies is like, all right, here's 10 things you've seen before. I promise you it's Star Wars. Do you believe me? So I don't think those 5 minutes reflected well on what the show could be. Does that feel like a fair assessment to you?
Yeah, the first episode of Rebels, the first like season is fairly the first episode is like pretty mid. I watched the first 3 of the 4 seasons. I never watched the last one. I hear it's pretty great. It does everything it does things surprisingly well. It's a good ensemble show once everybody's there. It navigates the canon nicely. Mm-hmm. It features a lot of art and ideas that were from like concept art from the original trilogy. It's very much a love letter to the original trilogy. That's cool. Which is cool. You don't see a lot of that in the current canon. And it incorporates new stuff into the canon later on, but none of that happens early on. The first like 2 seasons are very much like a kid's show, and then when it intersects with Star Wars: The Clone Wars, it gets really good, and then season 3 is like very good. But it's kind of a long. I was watching it week to week, and I never knew why I was watching it until I got to season 3. So it's it's a bit of a burn.
Gotcha.
AMCA was actually, or More Civilized Age was covering it right before the strike, so they're going to get back to covering it, and I'll get to hear about when it gets really good.
They finished Clone Wars?
Yeah, well, they finished everything but the last season of Clone Wars, because that one takes place after Rebels. So you can watch all of Rebels, then the last season of Clone Wars.
I see. That makes sense. The other thing that came up in that conversation is, to the other student who was there, I asked her, well, what's your fandom, basically? Again, fishing for something to talk about on this episode. And she said she was more a Harry Potter person, which made sense because a couple days prior, I'd worn a new blazer to work. And first of all, she said, you devoured, I fear, which was a huge compliment. Her friend separately said you devoured, I fear, the next day when I wore a different blazer. So thank you.
Like you ate?
Yes, correct. And when she said you devoured, I fear, she also said it's giving, and then showed me a picture of Remus Lupin from the 3rd Harry Potter movie. So it's like, all right, I guess I'm in my Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher era.
Yeah.
So we got into a conversation like, which house are you or whatever, and I'm like, I'm Slytherin. And she was like, no, you're not. You're clearly a Hufflepuff. And I was like, look, I took the quiz, and I'm Slytherin. I know that. And she's like, well, I'm Slytherin. Okay, cool. Well, that's where all the evil people are or whatever. And then she described herself as the Bernie Sanders of Slytherin house.
I just made a face. I just made a huge face.
Which is like such a thing. Such a thing. So I took the quiz to be like, what house am I in? My feelings about the Harry Potter franchise have obviously like soured quite a bit. For J.K. Rowling turf reasons.
Yeah.
So,
and like reanalysis of the text as adults reasons too.
Yeah, definitely. So even that being said, I was like more invested in this like result than I wanted to be. So I so I checked it out and I did the quiz and I thought I was going to be a Ravenclaw and I was a Slytherin again. And I was like, all right, well,
wow.
There's that. So that was my Friday.
Amazing.
I want to hear about your next one.
Yeah, this funny that you talk about Harry Potter because my next one is sort of a modern day response to Harry Potter type stories. This was a not only an Amanda recommend, but a like forceful recommend. Like, shove this book into your hands, take this home with you. But Amanda, if you give it to me, then I'm gonna feel compelled to read it. And she nods. I know. And then I'm compelled by this cursed tome about cursed tomes, mind you. And it is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, which has one of the best pitches I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. Amanda was like, do you like witches? I was like, obviously. She's like, do you like gay witches? I was like, fucking obviously. Mm-hmm. She was like, do you like gay witches that fall in love with vampires? And it's a complicated, like historical romance, and I was like, stop saying things. I'm gonna read this now. Like, don't give me any additional sell. That's exactly what it is. It's this is the thing. People read Harry Potter and they were like, oh my god, like it like changed our brain chemistry. And a lot of adults wish that they could have a Harry Potter that doesn't have the turfy parts and doesn't have the problematic parts of the story, right? This, not to say that this is not a young adult school story.
No,
it's about librarians.
No, it's not. Sorry, it's not for young adults. Don't read it, young adults.
No, it's super not. But it is from somebody who cared about magic and the way that rules and magic work in things like Harry Potter, just to be clear, and leaned into the sauciness that like Harry Potter fan fiction and stuff leaned into, and like late season Buffy, that sort of like dark queer magic stuff. Super dark, super cool, and the way it weaves in and out of history is awesome. Within the first 5 pages, we're already talking about the Oxford Coven of Witches, like the Oxford University witches. And I was like, shit, dude, this is so... I'm in. I want to like light a candle and read the whole thing in one night. It's nice. I don't read enough like of texts, books like this. I don't know what I mean by that, but just like kind of sexy, but also like there's some good lore and magic, and it's like all the stuff I've been looking for that I haven't found in one book. It really scratched an itch I forgot that I had.
Yeah, we've this is a series that Amanda really loves, so we've been kind of chipping away at it as our bedtime reading. Like I'll read it to her before we go to sleep now and then. And
don't make me cry. Careful, I'm gonna cry. That's so sweet. Fuck.
And I like the same thing about it because it's written. I think the author has a background in history, like she has a PhD in history or something like that, like the history of science. And there's a lot of like little factoids and things about the history of alchemy and that sort of stuff woven into it. So the world building is really detailed in a cool way. And it's like your mileage is going to vary in terms of whether or not you want to read like a romance book or not. But if you're down to clown, it's fun, and I think it's a good one of those. So Discovery Witches.
Yeah.
Deborah
Harkness.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we have a real special time reading it together. So
I love that very much.
Yeah.
What do you have next?
Well, let's see. Okay, this was something that wasn't recommended to me, but I overheard a conversation at my birthday party. This is now Saturday, where one of my coworkers was talking about his befuddlement at students being really into and obsessed with the Five Nights at Freddy's series. And how well the recent movie did. So I watched a 5-minute YouTube video explaining the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, and
5 minutes.
It was like not. I know there are like deep lore dives, but it was just like a here's what it is kind of thing.
Okay.
And I got it. I'm good. I got it. That's all. I don't really want to talk about it.
Not me sliding under the table my halfway through watch of this 8-hour 47-minute video of the complete history timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's. Not me pretending I didn't watch that.
I'm not interested in that, I will say. I would rather experience this series as a Wikipedia page than a video game. I'll say that.
Yeah, certainly. No, that's why it's popular. It's more satisfying as a Let's Play or a Wikipedia page than it is as a video game. The games are like not that good. They're very janky and awkward. The video I found that I watched was like circulated around my friend groups on Discords for like 2 weeks, and then ended up being talked about on the Austin Danger podcast. Like it made it all the way up. Yeah. And which is like a movie podcast that I respect and love very much. And I was like, fuck, should I really watch this 8-hour 47-minute video? And I started and I was like, damn, this guy's narration is good. And like he's building up. And what's good about that video, it's from YouTuber Gibby's Good Idea, Bad Idea.
Okay.
If people want to watch it. He like talks a lot about the context of the games, why people cared about them, what Matt Pat and the game theory people had to do with the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. Like it's not just about the games, it's like about the legacy of them, which I think is cool. That's what I care about. And also the movie just came out.
I'm interested.
But anyways.
Yeah. Also,
enough.
it was funny because this explainer video spent the first like minute talking about the creator and his politics and how he's like,
Yeah, super
apparently
Christian.
like a super Christian conservative guy who donated a lot of money to Donald Trump and made like an anti-abortion video game before that or whatever. And a bunch of the YouTube comments were like, why does it matter what somebody's politics are as long as the game's good? Or it's shameful to bring up the and I was like, all right, well.
I will say the video I watched brings that stuff up, but mentions that like people kind of overanalyze how much like that is in Five Nights at Freddy's. At least,
Yeah,
he's done other games that are more explicitly about that stuff. It's just like it's a thing in the background of his life and that matters, but it's not the defining secret to understanding the games.
Gotcha. The next thing, this is something that I was given as a gift on my birthday by one of my colleagues who I had talked to about us reading Kitchen Confidential because she used to be a chef. And so I was sort of interested in her perspective on that. And she was basically like, oh, yep, that book is accurate. So she got me this book called Hungry Ghosts. And get this, it's Anthony Bourdain writing a fictional story about a group of chefs who are gathered together by a billionaire to play this ancient like samurai sort of, I don't know how best to describe it. It's like a daring game where essentially you fill a room with 100 candles and then you tell scary stories to each other about like demons and stuff. And after every story, you look at yourself in the mirror to make sure that you haven't been possessed by a demon, and then you extinguish one of the candles. And it's kind of like, how long can you last in this room where you're telling scary stories that's getting progressively darker and darker and darker?
Yeah.
Also, it's a graphic novel.
Oh.
And it's pretty cool. The art style's like really creepy. And it's this like, montage of the different chefs telling different spooky stories, taking their turns in the game. And I love the beginning of it because there's this page where it does like kind of profile shots of all the different chef characters saying a line about the situation that they're finding themselves in. And you just get these little snapshots of who they are that felt very reminiscent of how Anthony Bourdain described working in a kitchen and all the different characters that he ran into and that kind of thing. So you get that feel of like, this is a pirate's crew of it's a real motley crew of like very strong personalities who are going to tell spooky stories that kind of reflect those personalities. So I'd recommend it. It's called Hungry Ghosts. Also, every story has a different art style drawn by a different artist, which is really cool.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a nice piece, I think.
It sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Get it? Delicious?
What's your next thing?
This was a Chatz Discord recommendation that was given technically unintentionally, I believe. Listener Pat did at me directly and in our Food Chats channel and said, hey, Alan, I think you would like this. I just watched this movie. And it is Tampopo, which is he said, have you ever seen Tampopo? It's so good. Instead of a spaghetti Western, it is a ramen Western. My girlfriend and I ordered in ramen and watched it and had a blast. It is a film from the 80s that is a series of vignettes about food, why we play with food, how we interact with food, what it means to us. It's very charming and funny and beautifully shot, is what I will say from the first 5 to 10 minutes. I want to watch the rest of it. It is free on YouTube. There are a couple of good jokes in there. The very first scene is you should probably eat while watching this movie, because the first scene is a fourth wall breaking moment where the guy is in a movie theater facing you, the viewer, and he goes, hey, what are you doing? Watching a movie? What are you eating? Take a look at your food. Don't eat loud. You're in a movie theater. Can you relax? I don't like it when people eat loud. You know what I also hate is when people crumple up plastic inside when they're in a movie theater, and a guy next to him does it, and then he like jumps on the guy and punches him, and it's like, this is funny. I like this. And then the next one is about ramen and how you should appreciate and caress and enjoy your ramen. And I was like, oh, this is nice. Caress the pork is a line that is said. We're going to try and put this on the Chatz Discord at some point soon. I think it's It's a lovely watch, I think.
Nice. Okay, I'll talk about the next day, Sunday. I just want to have us reflect about the fact that together we went to Spoons, Tunes, and Booze, which was a rec of from a few weeks ago. And I'd love to talk about the tunes that we watched there, because I don't know when or how else we would talk about them. So we watched we watched 5 different cartoons. The first was Rocko's Modern Life. It was the Thanksgiving episode. I'd never seen that show before.
Really?
Yeah, I was very confused by his accent until I was told by a coworker the next day that he's like a dingo, so he's Australian. That's kind of fun.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it was a fun little episode where he's trying to save all the turkeys in town, and
they keep growing and they keep multiplying, and then everyone wants a turkey. And
uh-huh.
yeah, not the funniest episode, but a cute episode. Rocko's Modern Life oscillates between really charming and really weird and funny, and I definitely preferred the weird and funny episodes when I was a kid. But yeah, that was a good one. It's a solid app.
Yeah, the vibe of it is it's the kind of show that my mom would have told me that I wasn't allowed to watch when I was a kid.
Yes, it feels a little bawdy.
Because she didn't let me watch SpongeBob or Ed, Edd n Eddy. Those were like her two, where it's like, these shows are dumb. You're not allowed to watch this.
No comment.
But then I watched a bunch of Ed, Edd n Eddy when I was at my dad's house.
There we go.
Oh, sorry, Mom. Anyway, now I have a TV podcast. I can watch any shows I want. Stay up all night. That's not really
Watches one show a month, falls asleep at 8 p.m.
The second show that we watched was frickin' Powerpuff Girls, which is awesome.
So good.
Why is a Powerpuff Girls so good? I was amazed.
To my 2 notes. Number 1, I all of the puns that the narrator does in that show went over my head as a kid. Just completely.
100%.
Except for the Beatles episode, because that one's entirely composed of Beatles songs and lyrics. That's clever. Number 2, the episode is about daylight savings time. The Powerpuff Girls have a curfew, so they can't go out and fight after 8:30 or whatever. But the professor didn't realize it was DST, so it's actually 7:30. He sends them out to save the day. The scene where he realizes it and yeets his daughters out the window is like so funny to me. Still thinking about that animation, I'm like, that's just good. That's like really funny. It's good. It's good, guys.
Yeah. It was also fun for me as a teacher to see, having just done parent-teacher conferences or family conferences last week, for a big plot point to be the professor seeing this note that they brought home that says, I have to go to a parent-teacher conference.
Yeah.
No. That was pretty funny. So I like that.
And he's just miserable there. Yeah, it was great.
Then we watched the wildest cartoon I've ever seen.
Yes. Inhumanoids?
Inhumanoids. Huh?
What's going on? Why do you guys not tell us the show exists? This is the greatest thing ever made, ever.
What in God's name? So, Inhumanoids. Oh, I have amazing news.
What's that? It's on a streaming platform.
There are 13 episodes of Inhumanoids.
Sorry, you almost made me choke. Oh my God. All right. I will put it in the Discord and not tell people why.
We got to write down somewhere that we're definitely going to watch this for 13 under 13.
Well, yeah. If I put it in there and I'll pin it.
In
that's
the 13
my
under 13
informal list.
Got it.
Now you guys know why I put it there on Monday.
This show was bananas.
Yeah.
Basically, we watched an episode where a bunch of teens were going down. Episode 8, Cult of Darkness, I believe it was. A bunch of teens going downstairs to where a big skeleton guy is turning them into zombies. Also, the big skeleton is named Decompose. Did you know that it's spelled D''compose?
Yep, that's perfect.
Shut the front door.
Decompose.
Basically, the Inhumanoids is just like, it's like a G.I. Joe type show in style. It's a Hasbro show. So I think they were trying to make fetch happen again.
Yes.
And there's these like humans in exoskeletons fighting big monsters and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And my goodness.
So funny. So weird and absurd.
Just like roided out 80s action type stuff. Very good. Very good.
Every 10 seconds, something new is happening. They're like, just the stream of the beginning of the episode where it's like, I'm like, what's the guy's name? The guy who found Capone's vault. Coraldo. Not Fitzcarraldo.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That guy, the mustache news guy. And it's like, I'm here to investigate the new trend with the kids. They're all joining a cult down in this like tunnel. I'm gonna go check it out. I'm on the scene. Cut to, oh my god, I've been indoctrinated into the cult. I love it. I'm gonna go to join the cult now. And then cut to, what is the cult? But a guy named Decompose who touches your head and then you dissolve and become a like melted zombie, and then you just walk around and try to kill people and turn them into more melted zombies so he can take over the world. What? That's so violent and scary for kids. What? It's perfect. I love it. I want to watch this show really badly.
Yeah. My two favorite parts were, I think, number one, when the newscaster's talking about the cult happening, and he says he's no Dale Carnegie, but he still hasn't done anything illegal, which is just like the perfect encapsulation of broken ass capitalist brain 80s politics that I've ever heard. And then the other amazing line is the like Earth Core good guys, big air quotes, are hanging out with this like general dude, and the general guy's like, I feel like I should have some say in this. And the one Earth Core guy goes, like, on the rare chance that we wanted your opinion, I would just grab a crowbar and beat it out of you.
Bananas! Who are you?
So unhinged. So good. Anyway, there may be more Inhumanoids content, in the far future.
I hope so.
Golly gee. Then we watched Wacky Races, which I'd never seen before, but that was pretty fun. And they made a fun suggestion of you pick a car that you want to root for and root for it, and that was a nice little game. And then we watched some Looney Tunes, including Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
I don't think I'd ever actually watched a full Duck Dodgers thing, and that was pretty fun.
I love Duck Dodgers.
The running gag of like the different guns that are like the disintegrating ray, and it disintegrates, and then the disintegrator ray, which like the ray disintegrates. It was great. It's a very good runner joke on that.
Yeah. And then you left, and they played one more Looney Tunes, which was like Bugs. Like Bugs was doing something. Somebody wanted Bugs' brain. It was fine. It was good. It was good. I don't remember all the details.
We weren't there.
So anyway, that was Sunday.
I have two more.
Okay.
These are both brief. I watched the first episode of The Crown. This was a great one. So the context is more fun than the show. I was not supposed to be working today. I had a sick day, but I did sign into work, and I did message one of my favorite coworkers about like, hey, how are you doing or something. And she was like, you should call me when you have a chance. And she spilled some incredible tea about our work that I'm not supposed to share, and about like what's going on in the city of Boston right now. I can tell you off air, John. It's like so wild. But
okay.
Anyways, after that, she was like, anyways, what's going on in your life? You're the TV guy. Tell me what you've been watching lately. I told her, and she was like, can I make you a recommendation? And I was like, oh my God, you are cutting it so close, but yes, you can. And she was like, I need someone to watch The Crown and tell me what they think, because I'm on season 5 and I want someone else to watch it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, coworker, I'm going to watch it today and tell you. And she was like, she was so happy. She was like, you're going to watch it? You're going to watch it today? And I was like, yeah. And I'm going to like take notes and like have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
She was thrilled. So The Crown is, I did not even know what the premise of The Crown is. It's about the political wheelings and dealings surrounding Queen Elizabeth II's reign as Queen of England. Mm-hmm. Specifically like her first marriage, the end of like the 1960s, Cold War stuff, the 80s, and then we get into the 90s, and like the current season of the show, I think season 5 or whatever, is about Princess Diana. Mm-hmm. And it's like how the Princess Diana situation happened. And as a historical drama, I think that's a really fascinating piece of history to cover. It's a period piece. It's got a very high budget, but it also just has the most bonkers cast I've ever seen. I did not know how many famous people are in even the first episode and first season. I mean, John Lithgow is Winston Churchill. Just like sit on that.
Wow.
Imagine John Lithgow doing a thick British accent being Winston Churchill. Like, at the end of his career, too. So they're like, oh, this guy's fucking washed up. He wins one war, and he's suddenly like, oh, blah, 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 like, whatever. Yeah. Stupid. They all, like, dump on Winston Churchill. Matt Smith plays her first husband.
Whoa.
Which is wild. I was like, whoa, Matt Smith. And then Jared Harris plays King George, George VI, who is the one that Colin Firth plays in The King's Speech with the stutter.
Yeah.
I love Jared Harris. I don't think he's ever been in a project I don't like. He does the stutter a little bit more. This is really hard to speak about without like getting to disability stuff. Mm-hmm. It's more subtle than it is in The King's Speech because it's not about that, if that makes sense.
Right. That makes sense.
You know, it's just like happening and they don't comment on it, and it happens less often. But great performances, great costuming, beautiful show. If I had the time, I would probably watch this. It's a little long for my liking, but sure. It's pretty paced. Well, it's decently paced also. If I had someone to watch this with, I would knock it out, but it's not at the top of my list right now.
Yeah. All right. I got 3 rapid fires from today. You ready for this?
Okay. So ready.
All right. The first is seaweed. So, that student who talked about Star Wars and recommended Rebels, last week they had some seaweed in class, and they like gave us some, but then other students wanted the seaweed, and it like kind of disrupted class for a minute. So I ended up talking to their friend about the seaweed, and it was her who had given that student the seaweed. So then this morning, she was like, Mr. Fluke, I have something for you. And she had a thing of seaweed for me. I was like, oh my gosh. Wow, thank you. And so I had the seaweed because it was gifted to me.
Yum.
It's such a nice, salty, flavorful treat. You know, it's just on the lips, on the tongue for a brief moment. But boom, it's really packed with flavor. And it's also a very social treat because they give you so many of them in one pack that if someone's like, oh, can I have a piece of that? Sure. I got a million of these. Take 2.
Yeah.
Take 2 of them. So I was on a hallway post eating seaweed, and students were coming by like, oh, can I get one? Of course you can.
Of course.
I have like 40 in here. What am I going to eat? All of these seaweeds? Psh, get out of here. So seaweed, it was great. Arthur sent me a text today, and he said, let me get the wording exactly right. He said, I'm using 45 seconds of my allotted 5 minutes of recommendation time to send you this video. And it's the Jonathan Frakes Beyond Belief compilation, where it's Jonathan Frakes interrogates you, and it's all of the questions. That's just a perennial classic. It's good to give that a watch every couple of months.
I'll put a clip of it. It's fiction, we made it up, etc., etc., etc.
What really happened here? Who was the cowboy who confronted Johnny and Larry that night? Was the old woman in on it, too? Could Danny have been hallucinating? But if Dan was hallucinating, who ate house food? What about the mysterious behavior of the barbecue lid? Was it really the nanny? Does this story seem possible? Was the morgue attendant in on the deception, too? Were there gases trapped within the milk bucket that caused the activity?
Yeah. And then something that was brought up to me that I wish I had time to do, but I didn't, is a friend of mine from work told me about how when he was in college, he used to do this thing called Skyrim workouts, where whenever you got into a fight in Skyrim, then you had to do some push-ups or something like that.
Whoa.
I wish I had the time, but I did not. It didn't make it under the wire. But a recommendation or a thing he mentioned that did make it is a mutual friend of ours, when she goes to the gym, she watches The Golden Bachelor.
Yes.
Have you watched this?
No, but I'm familiar. It's The Bachelor, but for seniors, people over 60.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I watched 5 minutes of The Golden Bachelor, and I have very complicated feelings about it. Because on the one hand, it's trying to do this thing of like, it's sweet, you know? Like,
yeah.
Oh, it's so nice and good that people who are like between the ages of 60 and 75 are going for love or trying to give it another chance and find that next great love in their lives or whatever. But on the other hand, it's still doing like weird Bachelor vibe stuff of like, this person's such a wacky character and this is a reality show. So you kind of just have this like split feeling about it, where on the one hand it's like, aw, and on the other hand it's, I'm not kidding you. The opening montage where the Golden Bachelor guy is like getting ready and getting dressed, there's a solid 30 seconds where there's no sound except for the little shufflings and rufflings of him putting his tie on. And then this cat puts in his hearing aids and the music kicks in.
Whoa. That's cool.
It's cool. And it's like, all right, the Golden Bachelor. And then they proceed to do like a solid 2.5 minutes about the fact that he's a widower and his wife who passed away. They were married for 40 some years and they bought their dream house together, retired, and a month after they got their dream house, she got sick and passed away.
No.
And they're showing the pictures of her, and it's like, here are all his kids, and they're like, he deserves to have love again. And it was really sad, and also it was done with the sort of like swoosh sound effects of a reality show, and he's like a talking head talking to camera, and it just like, it was so odd. It reminded me a lot of this one episode of How I Met Your Mother where Marshall, you learn that Marshall, whenever he wants to like fantasize about a woman, he has to kill off Lily in his head. And he like goes through elaborate fantasies of like a way that Lily would pass away before he can imagine, you know, like
that's
doing
so
the thing.
Fun. That's so weird.
It's a pretty funny concept for an episode, and by the end of it she's like, what the fuck? Like, just imagine yourself having sex with somebody else. It's fine. This is strange, the thing that you're doing. And I know that the Golden Bachelor guy, it's like his real life and this really happened to him and it's really sad, but also the artifice of television just made it feel like this was an elaborate fantasy of like, you know, here's my wife 40 years, but I want to imagine that I'm like the big hunk and all of these like hot older ladies are trying to hang out with me.
Aww.
So it was fun. And I watched through seeing like the first 3 contestants come out of the limos. I honestly might watch more. Like it is kind of a fun thing to put on. I'm rooting for Sandra. She comes out and she's like, I'm a little nervous right now. And when I get nervous, I like to do this little meditative thing. Can we do it together? And they bleep it out, but her meditative thing is she like puts her palms together, takes in a deep breath in, and as she's breathing out, she goes, fuck.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. I need to take that. I'm stealing that immediately.
It was awesome. So
yeah, that's good.
The Golden Bachelor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should we become a reality show podcast? Oh wait, I'm already on one. Fuck. Well, not really. Kind of.
I've always wondered if there's you know, gas in that tank for Chatz to do a reality show season. I'm open to it.
Yeah,
but I don't know what the right.
Maybe it's the Golden Bachelor. I have one more. We've been going for a while, but I got one more for you.
Yeah.
I want to briefly talk about V Rising, which is an early access top down or isometric action crafting game where you play as vampires in a open world. It has gameplay similar to like Diablo, but also Minecraft. You're collecting materials and building a sanctum so that you can escape the sunlight and be safe and build up your equipment so that you can fight more vampires, because when you eat from certain creatures or other vampires, then you gain their powers. I don't talk about it a lot, but like the Scanline folks are people I talk to every single day, and like Six and Jen and Kyrie and Rose and Nick and Harry and Kat. Those are my pals, my online pals. They're all wonderful. And Six and Nick especially sometimes will just like be on Discord at like 11 o'clock at night, because Six is on West Coast time and Nick is on East Coast time, and you know, has weird job schedule stuff. And I'm like, oh, what are you guys playing? And they're always playing something different, but they keep coming back to V Rising. And recently they were like, do you want to try this with us? This was last night actually. They were like, do you want to try it with us? Like, because they just reset our progress, because it's in early access, so we're back to level 1. And I was like, sure. It's like $20. This game, and I don't want to like overhype it for you, Magellan, this game has big RuneScape energy.
Oh,
like in the right ways, because you know, I get out into the world and I barely have anything. I can like whack people with my hands. I have a basic sword, I'm like, how do I get anything better? And they were like, you just grind for it. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you have to level up your crafting skill so that you can build a better axe, so that you can get wood, so that you can then build a sword with metal that you get by mining. And I was like, oh my God, they did it. The bastards did it. They made a new RuneScape. And like, all it took was like, every time we try to go back to RuneScape, I get annoyed because there's no objectives. And like, that's the point, whatever. I'm not saying they should fix that.
Yeah.
But this is like RuneScape with objectives that are just like build a metal sword. And it's like, okay, I know why I want that, but thank you for putting it on my checkboard, because that helps with my brain and like my, sorting of tasks.
Yeah.
It does also have the like thing that games like Minecraft do, where if you're like, all right, guys, I played for an hour, I'm really sleepy, I'm going to go to bed. You guys can keep playing. You come back the next day, all your friends are like level 600. And you're like, what the fuck? You guys built the Library of Alexandria on our server? What the hell?
Yeah.
So I'm already behind, but it doesn't really matter because it's early access anyway, so who cares?
Yeah.
But I like it. I want to play more of it with Six and Nick. It's fun. Be Rising. Good game.
Nice.
I like being recommended little games like this.
Okay, that's fun.
That's all I got.
Great. Well, that was our week of being yes people to recommendations. Is this something you would consider doing again?
Definitely. It was really fun.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, very quick. Alan, this is your last chance to say anything about any of the stuff we've talked about in the Chats in a Pickle season. So I'm going to rattle off the things we've covered, and you just either say one sentence or you say nope.
Roger that. I'm ready.
Okay. Hot ones or spicy stuff?
I'm still I still use the hot sauces that you gave me from that episode.
Mm-hmm.
They're still good. I still watch hot ones. The latest episodes have been decent, not great. And I still love that we filmed that, and we should hang out more and film more fun stuff together.
Yeah. I bought the lemon pepper hot sauce from the grocery store and put it on some breakfast sandwiches I made, and it was pretty good. Okay.
Yeah.
No Name's discography.
Her latest second Tiny Desk was awesome. It made me rewatch the first one. So now she has one for Sundial and one for telephone. I think she's cool. I think it's interesting that in that second Tiny Desk, she was like, I'm going to play my most controversial song. And it's the one with Jay Electronica, but without him on it, because he's not there. And I was like, But she also brought Smino and Saba on for that one. And I was like, damn it. I do love this, is the thing.
I have pretty much been listening to my standard rotation of No Name songs, but Hold Me Down has entered that rotation.
Very nice.
From that album. Baldur's Gate 3?
Friend of the podcast, Carson, was like, Alan, why do you not like you and Carson have gotten really into, Baldur's Gate 3 and have played it, and a lot of your coworkers have, apparently. This is like a virus that has spread. And I felt like I was the apostate or something who's like, I didn't like it. And they were like, what? Are you okay? And I was like, it just didn't run well, and I couldn't get into it. And they were like, oh, all right, we're adults. We're not going to push you to play it more. But we liked it, and that's unfortunate that you didn't like it. I'm not going to play Baldur's Gate 3 anymore. I totally respect and understand why people like it, though.
Yeah. Yep. One of my favorite games of all time. I played 100 hours in the campaign. It's like changed my hobby life because I'm playing a lot more D&D now. Awesome. Great game. I could talk for hours about it.
If I buy Steam Deck OLED and I really want a long game to play on it, maybe I'll
it would be perfect for that.
Yeah.
All right. How to make a workbench.
I was thinking about this today. I was building something. Or no, I wasn't building something. Oh, I forget. I was thinking about this episode, though, and Stefan, and how fun that was, and building things, and how we can just use the tools to make the stuff. Like, I bought this charger recently that, like, it's a 3-in-1 charger for your phone, your watch, and your AirPods. And I was, like, looking at it, like, how did this get made? Why did this cost me $100? Could I have made this with, like, a couple of circuits and stuff? Would it actually have been hard? But I did still buy it, and I feel bad because we learned from Paul Sellers and from Stefan that you can just make things. So I retained the spirit of this episode, but I am not doing it in my day-to-day life.
Are we going to do chatsims on this episode?
We can. Do you want to?
Either I would.
It's an episode full of chatsims.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't for that reason. I have a video essay that I would either talk about now in the context of how to build a workbench, or it's my chatsum, which is why I want.
I think we can forgo chatsims this week because this episode is about chatsims.
Yeah. So I watched this video essay called How to Get Started, The Cult of Done from No Boilerplate is the name of the channel.
What a good title.
It's a video essay about essentially like this blog post with these different kind of maxims about the philosophy of getting things done. And it's essentially like your standard advice of, make a million things, or, embrace the process, make mistakes, that kind of stuff. And it just made me think about how to build a workbench and like the kind of timeless wisdom that series represents, and why I really appreciate talking about it. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Kitchen Confidential.
We, friend of the podcast, Jim and I, when we went to New York to see you, we got pizza somewhere, and Jim said it was Anthony Bourdain's favorite pizza in all of New York City. And his picture is right there next to the register. So
where did you get it? What's that?
I don't remember, and I feel bad. It was a very generic name, unfortunately. It was like, here it is. Favorite NYC pizza spot is at Brooklyn Institution. Oh yeah, here it is. Difara Pizza. I believe this is the one. This looks correct.
When did you do that? Saturday night?
No, Friday night, before we got to you.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
On the way to you. Yeah. I believe it was that one. This interior looks right. But anyways, I thought about him because he's there. Also, the guy from Bizarre Foods was there. Andrew Zimmer, was there. His picture was there. And I was like, I personally don't like Andrew Zimmer that much. I think what he does is fine. I just think his brand is annoying. So seeing his big face next to Bourdain's face, I was like, one of these guys is really cool. Love Bourdain. I think about him whenever I order fish.
Love it. I no new thoughts except what I said about Hungry Ghosts.
Yes.
The Buffy RPG, Terry the Vampire Slayer.
No, nothing.
Yeah, same. I've been playing a lot of RPGs. That's about it.
Yeah.
Return of the Soul and Memories of Tokyoto. Too mellow stuff.
I love Mello's new theme song for Remap. It's really good.
I listened to some Too Mellow stuff as like the soundtrack to doing some work a couple weeks ago. It was nice.
Oh, it's good for that. Very good for that.
Oracle of Ages and Seasons. You play any more of that?
I did. I finished the dungeon that I was on, and then I burned out again. And I finished the island. The island was really fun. The one that's like Eventide Island from Breath of the Wild. That one's great. It has a good ending. And then I just, every time I get to the open world of that game, I get tired. I'm like, I should look up a guide, and then I don't, and then I stop playing it. There's a lot of other games out right now.
I haven't played any more of it. The Artist Way.
I've been thinking about getting back to journaling. And I'm trying to be more trying to nurture my creative self a lot more these days.
I love that. The Cult of Done video concept also made me think about The Artist's Way. So kind of brought both of those things together. Moving Out, you play any more of that?
Absolutely not.
Me neither. Edgar Allan Poe?
I finished The Fall of the... Oh, I can talk about it now. Oh my God. The Netflix show that inspired us to do this episode is The Fall of the House of Usher show. It's so fucking good, you guys. If you want a spooky show about gay people dying. Sorry. I mean evil rich gay people. Please watch The Fall of the House of Usher. It's so fun and violent and cool. And I love it. And all my coworkers love it. And it's helped me bond with some of them. And shout outs to Poe.
Nice. I found out there were some English teachers in the humanities office who were talking about what short stories they should read in 10th grade. And I recommended some Poe stuff. And I found out that one of my coworker friends hates Edgar Allan Poe because she's sick of teachers making her read Edgar Allan Poe, which I thought was funny.
That's funny as hell, yeah.
Any new thoughts about birds?
I still listen to Bird Note every day, and sometimes I take my headphones out just to listen to birds.
Oh, I love that.
This episode left a positive mark on me, yeah.
I was at a train station and walked by a tree full of birds, and I was like, oh, I have an app that I could use to hear those. And then when I got to the platform on the other side, I tried to use the app, and they were too far away, and it didn't know what birds they were.
No. Sad.
Venba.
Instead of having my mom do most of the meal prepping, I've been asking her to teach me how to make the meals that we meal prep because of Venba. And I have not been writing them down, but I am retaining them really well and practicing them. So it can make a pretty good kebab if you want to come over for kebab sometime. I'm getting good at
that. Went home to Massachusetts about a week and a half ago for an early Thanksgiving, early birthday celebration. And I was reminded that my mom has a Venba. And by that, I mean my mom has made a scrapbook cookbook of holiday recipes with her own commentary in it. And I love my mom, and that's awesome.
I do too.
So it's such a gift. And lastly, this is actually happening.
I really don't have much follow up on this one. As I said, I don't plan on listening to the podcast anymore, but I'm glad I did.
Same. Cool. Well, hey, that was Chatz in a Pickle. We did the whole dang thing. We hope you enjoyed this side season, this little thing that we were doing. We talked last time about what the next couple weeks are going to look like, so if you want the full skinny on that, you can listen to the beginning of last week's episode. But what you can expect next week is episode 7 of TrekChatz, which is going to cover season 7 of Star Trek The Next Generation. Very exciting stuff. I'm really looking forward to that. So join us next week for the triumphant return of television.
What's Data going to do? What are they going to do about lore? What's going to happen in the Lower Decks episode? How does the show end? Oh my god, I have so many questions.
All those and more will be answered next time on TrekChatz.
Hooray. Hooray. Where do we go from here?
Plug zone.
Okay. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Chats. If you made it all the way through this episode, congratulations. You get a plug zone. If you have questions, comments, concerns, or things you want to ask us, our email address is chatspod@gmail.com. That's CHATZPOD@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter /X as @ChatsPod. If you want to reach out to us there, I do keep monitor of that. We have a YouTube channel. It's Chats Television Podcast. If you like our show, you can support us in a couple of ways. 5 stars, rating us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also check out our other work. I forgot to ask you, Magellan, where else can people hear you on podcasts, sir?
You can also hear me on Super Smash Echoes, a video game podcast I do with my friend Justin about games that are related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise. Super Smash Echoes, check it out. What about you?
And what about your writing?
Notthatmagellan.substack.com.
Amazing. I'm on Talking Marketing every other month, a marketing podcast I do for my volunteer job. It's really fun and chill and good. I'm also on a bunch of Scanline Media stuff, including The Garnet Wager, The Creature Quorum, and more? ? Oh, and I was on Novel Not New for like 3.5 hours talking about Metal Gear Solid 2. That episode's out. You should listen to it. It's fantastic. I'm the reason it went that long. If you like our podcast and want to hear us cab even more than this 2 hours you've been listening, check out patreon.com/chatspod. At $1, $3, and $5 a month, you get commentaries on movies like 13 Going on 30 and Paddington 2. And you get Chats Nights where we play games and fall in love with each other and talk about our history with the internet. And all of that is available at patreon.com/chatspod. $5 or more gets you all of the above, plus a thank you at the end of every main feed episode. Our $5 patrons today include Arthur, Emrys, Jen, Justin, Kyrie, Lee, Marcus, May Louise, Michael, Magellan's mom, Pat, Noel, Six, and Stefan. Thank you all so much for being Chatsy Watsy Deluxe Comfort Plus members. All things Chats can be found at chatspod.com, and our podcast art was done by Camilla. She's at Camillastrator on social media. Check out her art. That's it. We're not doing a Chatsums segment because we just did 2 hours of Chatsums, basically. Magellan, thank you for being the pickle to my teeth because I love to crunch you.
Oh, yeah.
Keep on recommending stuff. Keep on enjoying your friends' recommendations. Tell me how you guys feel about being recommended things and then recommending them. Does that give you the same existential anxiety as it kind of does for me? I'm curious. And that's all we have. So thank you for listening to Chats in a Pickle. Peace.